that had what we're doing there now, and this $250 million we're committed to add to what we've already given Ukraine, has nothing to do with our national security. And I see Ukraine has become very dependent. I guess they get foreign aid from other people too, but they say 90% of their foreign aid, which is probably a big hunk of their economy, comes from the United States. From the United States, who's that? Is that the Federal Reserve? No, eventually it's always from the people.
How does this money, this $125 million, $250 million, how does this make us safer? How does this help us?
Yeah.
What does it have to do with us, except for the elites? And let's don't forget Joe Biden standing up there saying, hey, I got $1 billion here, Poroshenko, but you got to fire that guy who is investigating my son, or you don't get this $1 billion. I mean, do you think Americans, when they were watching him give away our $1 billion, were saying, oh, that's great. We're so happy. We're going to be so much safer now.
Yeah, problem and the argument whether it's legitimate or political or quid pro quo is secondary to this principle we just talked about, and the principle of stealing from the American people and passing out money to benefit the military-industrial complex and the deep state.
Yeah.
That's where the real problem is.
And look, we should again mention this whole thing goes back really essentially to late 2013, early 2014, when the Obama administration got the bright idea, hey, let's do a coup in Ukraine. What could go wrong, you know? But here you talk about corruption. Here's an example of corruption. It would have given all the justification Trump needed to withhold the money. Remember back in September of 2019, the U.S. sent a couple of old Coast Guard cutters to Ukraine. And that was hailed as, a sign of support after this provocation in Kerch. But the plans to send those Coast Guard ships to Ukraine, that wasn't Trump's idea. That was launched in 2014 under Obama to give him these ships. And this was Trump, again, just continuing Obama's policy. But so why would it take him 4 years to get these ships? Well, one of the reasons is that Ukraine had its own shipbuilding company, and they didn't want free American ships because they wanted a contract to build those ships. Well, it was the only ship company in Ukraine, and guess who owned it? Poroshenko, the president himself. The president himself owned the only shipbuilding. He said, I don't want your free ships.
That's building American tradition.
Yeah, exactly. So, and the big backer of this ship transfer, by the way, was the former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine, Marie Yovanovitch, who made an appearance at the impeachment hearing saying, Trump went against the interagency. Trump went against the interagency. So, corruption is spread widely, I think, on this deal.
Did anybody ever remind her about the executive branch of government and the president? But overall, these things can always go back to the type of foreign policy we have. You immediately were able to take this and link it back to Obama, just like Syria. It's time for Assad to go. So it's a linkage, it's a continuation of, it's a foreign policy that I claim has been bipartisan for a long time because they capitulate to the deep state that have a lot of special interests, and it never seemed to change. There's demagoguing, and they'll try to get a political benefit from it, and yet when the dust settles, it's the same old stuff that we've been putting up with for a long time. I think at the beginning we sort of talked about the problems financially going on now, and also this incident, and I think, one of these days, and I've said this many times, one of these days we're just going to run out of money.